Although it's telling us we're live. And I just
Yeah,
clicked
I
live
thought I
stream.
had time to blow my nose. So it didn't have the
Sorry.
sound, but it's got the visual. Thank you very much, James.
Why is it live TV,
You did
right?
like give like
No, well, yes, the hordes of screaming fans are obviously sitting on the edges of their seats waiting for JW's creative sessions. I like the fact you've called it
particularly that we didn't
JW's.
have it for 2 weeks, and now we're kind of random these past couple of months about when we're doing it and at what
Well,
time exactly we're doing it.
I am trying to be
And
a bit more
we still don't advertise it whatsoever.
I'm still trying to be. Oh, well, I'm trying to be a bit more organized because I know your time is precious, and I know my time is
Your time is
precious.
precious, James.
Oh, I'm. I got up early and I did some marking, and I'm so proud of myself.
That is very, very good. I'm going to have a lot to do over the Christmas holidays, and I'm late with sending a bunch of feedback to students.
They hate
And
me.
I think I also need to write
I was
exam topics,
I was
maybe
late
even this
too.
week.
Oh, and I've got to write an exam. You just thanks for reminding me. I've got to create an exam. It's all exam season happening, and I thought after September and after doing the first module of my masters, like I'm starting the second module and feeling, oh, this feels doable. I feel like it's beginning to ramp up again, and I'm going to feel like I've got no time again.
Mhm.
However, the big thing I want to tell
Meditation.
you,
Do you still meditating?
oh, yes, still meditate. And it feels weird if I don't. The two big things I do want to tell you, though,
Yeah.
skateboarding.
Oh,
Skateboarding is so good for me, and I'm getting better. Do you know what an ollie is?
it's when you
Yeah, you
do
get the board
this.
off the ground. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I still can't do it yet. And that's the big ambition, but I'm getting closer. I've been I said I made friends with this guy on my road who can skate and he's really
Yeah, you
good
mentioned,
skating. So we've been early morning skating with
which
his
I'm
skate.
impressed too. I'm not very much of a super early morning person
So
unless I
I
need to.
I am early mornings, afternoons I'm not, evenings I'm a bit rubbish. But
I was
we've
working till
been
1:30 in the morning yesterday just to.
and then I don't know how you do it.
It's
Coffee,
quiet.
coffee,
It's quiet. I can get work done.
exactly.
Although
What
early morning people would have the same thing to say about it, but I don't know.
Well, that's exactly what I was about to say. So that's why we go to the skate park early in the morning because it's quiet. But on Friday night, we went to like a proper, like outdoor, semi-outdoor, like huge kind of shelter place skate park that's been there for years. It's in Ladbroke Grove, not far from Portobello Road Market,
Yeah.
and it's literally under the A40, the big road,
Wow.
right next to the tube line, so you can hear it's kind of so it's covered, but it's outdoors. And it was old man night for over 30s,
Wow.
and it was all guys, all over 30. It cost a
Wow.
tenner, and you get a hamburger, a beer. Obviously, I didn't have the beer, and I was so
I don't know.
intimidated. I was so intimidated. I walk in, and I'm like, I feel like the new kid at school slash like the first time I've ever been to a pub, and
That
I'm
is
like,
super cool, I find. I think that's awesome.
which bit? The feeling out
All
of
of
your
it.
depth? That no.
No, no, no. The not feeling out of your depth, that happens. But the just the whole event.
Oh yeah, it was amazing, and they do it on the last Friday of every month. So they start at 7. We got there. I walk in. I put my pads on, which already makes me feel self-conscious. There's a
Yeah.
couple of guys with pads on, but the ones with pads on and helmets are right at the back. This place is huge. Right at the back is a proper bowl, and they're skating around. I'm like, just like I'd never seen it live. And then
That's so
it's a bit
cool.
like a ski slope. Like you have to check what the hell's going on, and like before you like go for your run, and people are wet. Like I just it took me a while to get into it, and then I was doing the same on one little bit, the same stuff, and then tried some like big slope things, and I was like,
Wow.
oh, I feel a bit more confident now.
Did you go
But
on your own or with your neighbor?
I was with my friend, and
Okay,
he
cool.
found it. He'd been there. He'd been he was going there when he was a lot younger, and then
That is
yeah,
awesome. I think it's really cool that you're going out and maintaining and holding up to it. I still
it's
haven't put on my rollerblades at all
but
whatsoever.
that's because you're not having a midlife crisis, whereas I am.
Okay. Maybe. I'm sure it's coming soon. I don't know.
Yeah. So I did
Or I've
message one of
had
my
some and I'm gonna have more. I don't know.
I well, probably. I messaged one of my friends about skateboarding, and he said, "Well, it's better than buying a sports car." I was like, "That is true. It is better than buying a sports car." And then
I don't know about better, but it's
yesterday,
cheaper.
well, there's more
Arguably.
potential for broken bones. And then yesterday, the other thing I've been doing is because it's the weather's been really bad and it's cold. I haven't been able to skate on my road, so I put my skateboard and pads in the car, stop at the sheltered car park near the Sainsbury's, and skate in the car park, and it's really smooth. So I thought yesterday, let me go in the afternoon. So I'm skating in the Sainsbury's car park, and I see a pupil who skates. So I see him walking along, and it turns out he works at the gym that's really close as a lifeguard. So I just send in the board and say, "Show me what you got." And then he ollies and he kick flips, which is where you ollie, flip the board, and land. And like, he couldn't do the kick flip until the third try, and then he ollied over a cone, and I was like, "Oh, okay." And then he asked me, he asked me, "Can you show me what you see? Can you ollie?" I'm like, "No, I can't." He said, "Try." And he did. I managed to get the board off the ground and land like
Wow.
that much. So
Pressure to
it's
perform in front of your pupils.
yes,
Good. That's good motivation, apparently.
well, it is, but that's the other thing about being in the skate park is like it's massively self-conscious, like because normally it's just me and
I
my
can only
friend.
imagine.
It's
And like, how old did you feel at that point?
even though I was probably one of the oldest people in there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, there's probably a handful of people who might have been around the same age or a little bit older, but not many who are actually skating. I really like saying it, like I said earlier, like it felt like the first day of school, or
Yeah,
like,
but what year of school? How old were you?
oh no, okay, good point.
That's what I meant.
Yeah, I think the first time I went to secondary school, so I was like 11. I felt like 11, but also because everybody was old and looked old, going into the pub and ordering a drink for the first time. It was that
Ooh.
kind
Yeah.
of, and it wasn't like people were super friendly either. There were a couple of people, but it was a bit like not cliquey, but like I I felt like everybody knew I was like super not very good, super
Well, they
early
probably did, but they're not going to like.
noob.
They have no particular reason to lord it over you, and they'll make space for you, and they'll wait.
Yeah,
And if you ask them, they'll tell you things. But if you don't,
exactly.
they won't. Also, because I imagine that would be part of like being men all together past a certain age. But also, a number of them, if not every one of them, knowing that they're normally on the territory of kids. They're
Well,
arguably on the territory of kids normally, and then there's probably another British thing of being perhaps reserved, maybe, I don't
but
know.
then also I think it's a lot of it reminded us and then it's all like we're 13, 14, 15, 16 again.
Mm-hmm.
So we're all like that kind of thing. But you're right. And I did speak to two guys and they were both really cool. And there's also like I realize there's certain kind of questions like, so what are you trying to do? What are you trying to like, what are you
Yeah,
practicing? There's
which makes
definitely
sense
that
for the
kind of,
environment.
yeah, completely. So it was, so this guy asked me and I said, trying to stay alive. I didn't
that's
know what else to say.
that's kind of funny, but a bit too broad. He's like, yeah, I can't help you with that too much. So, but if you're a bit more specific, I might be able to help you.
I know, and my mate was
It's
really
still
helpful.
funny.
He was pushing me, but this guy was trying to come up, ollie onto a rail, grind on the rail, and then come off. And he was so close. And I was like really encouraging people and like looking and watching and learning. Like it's you do pick up on stuff. So it elevates everything,
Yeah,
rising tide and all of that.
for sure.
But the yeah, it was really cool. He was really great about it. And another guy I spoke to, he was like, "Yeah, I'm just here trying to practice this." But it was a really great atmosphere. It
That's very
was
cool. That's super
yeah.
cool. Awesome.
And then seeing the pupil yesterday was like icing on the cake because now I know he actually called another pupil. What? No, he went into Sainsbury's, got some food or something, came back, and he was on the phone to another pupil. He said, put me on video, and then I was skating, and it was like, can I see you skate? And so the whole thing is going to spread around the school.
Wow. And so teenagers still talk on the phone though, so it's a thing. There's some of them do, or
on the
like for
mobile
special occasions.
No, I think they do. Yeah, but I don't think they talk on the phone. I think it's more video calling. Kind of. It was on. I think they were using Snapchat, and it's just like video and sharing, and like just. I was like, okay, it's going to be around the entire school in like 5 seconds. So
yeah, so it's going to keep building your rep.
Exactly.
Somehow, anyway, whatever happens, it will. That's for sure.
Well, yeah, like middle-aged
somewhere
man
between
skate.
he's super cool, or oh my god, such a loser. Look at him.
It's the circle of cool. That's what it is. Eddie Izzard's circle of cool. So not cool, it's cool.
Oh yes, that's right. Because it was a circle. That's right. I forgot about
cool,
that.
cool, not cool, not cool, not cool, back cool again. Yeah.
Yes.
It's I kind of inhabit the edge of being cool, but like really not.
Yes. Oh, that's fantastic.
There was a guy in the skate park that a few weeks ago, and he said like his son, he went to pick up his son from school, and he skateboarded to school to meet his son. His son actually said, never, in his primary school, never do that again. I'm so tempted to skate, to pick up, if I get the chance to just pick up my nephew, just skate in.
Oh yeah, you should totally do that.
And my nephew would be like,
but that said, it's not the same with an uncle than a parent. You might have a little bit more leeway to be a cool or weird uncle than you do for a parent.
Which is what I am.
I don't know.
I think you're right.
People were like, wow, either, oh, cool, or like super weird. Oh yeah, he's my uncle. He's weird.
I think it'd be more likely to be that. But yeah, it did make me laugh. So yeah, skating, huge deal, very good fun. And I don't even remember what the second thing was because I'm enjoying too much talking about skating. Maybe it might have been super enjoying my master's still.
Yeah.
I can't get over.
Oh, and Everybody Lies.
Oh my God, you've done it again. You know what? I think you should just tell me what to read and I'll just read whatever you say because it's really good.
It's good, right?
It chimes perfectly with a lot of thinking that I'm doing as part of my master's because basically it's data science what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I really like the bit in the book about data science isn't like, if you're worried about numbers, don't be. We're all data scientists, which is exactly what I say. I say this, and I say the same things to my colleagues. Like, data isn't just numbers. You do realize you're constantly assessing all the time.
Yeah. Well, this week with my American university students who are working on thinking fast and slow, heuristics and biases, system 1, system 2, and a lot of the heuristics are just another way of like approaching data science. It's not really data. It's just like, all right, I'm going to eyeball things like the anchoring bias.
Yeah.
Or anchoring heuristic and leading to a number of biases. What looks alike. That's all. I mean, it's just kind of an intuitive appreciation of data. Now, if you really actually go into the data, then you start paying attention, looking for, identifying opportunities or biases because you don't realize them, but we all do it naturally from an intuitive perspective, which ironically is kind of technically the opposite of data science. But I totally agree with his point about the idea that we all have ways to approach things, which I think is like the heuristics part.
The story he tells about his grandmother giving him relationship advice. It's just, there's so many. I was like, oh yeah, that makes, that's, and then I have my own
the advice again. I can't remember right now.
So he's sitting around dinner table with his family, and he says, like, when you're over a certain age, family members will keep asking you, so when you're going to settle down, blah 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 blah. And his New York Jewish grandmother just sat there at the end of the table because all his family were giving him advice, and she just said a whole bunch of stuff that was absolutely on the money. And then he explains she's been around. She's seen marriages work, not work. But he also makes the point that she's judging it from her own experience of what she thinks, which is the other side of it. It's not necessarily what the information says about why people stay together. So he also makes the great point about it's not how big your data set is. It's how you use it, which is I'm
Yes.
going to adopt as my phrase.
Yeah, of course.
So
No, I think that is absolutely fantastic as well. I really, really like it.
yeah, the Google search thing. I now
Oh,
want
it's
to
so
look.
good.
It's so
Since
interesting.
there's been a bunch of agencies that have set up by saying that we're going to identify and do market research through searches, Google searches, partly down to the inspiration of this kind of guy, saying that actually we're revealing our inner a lot of things that we wouldn't dare tell anybody.
That and I knew about the Pornhub stats, and I would really, really like to just look at a data set, but I'm a little bit like, ugh, am I going to go down a rabbit hole too much for that? For one of our assignments for our masters, that we have to either do a whole bunch of things. We're working for a research agency, fictional, that's doing some analysis for the housing market or the secondhand car market, and we have to produce a data report and looking at using stats and how we'd use them and predictions and modeling, and it's really interesting.
Cool.
I really
Have you
like
chosen
it.
what you're working on yet, or no?
I'm doing the car one.
The cause?
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be a huge data set, so it's quite a bit of copying and pasting and stuff, but data wrangling, trying to get it into a decent state is the big problem with data sets in the first place.
Yeah, I
So
imagine.
I'm
I
used to
I
doing that
can
with
only
school.
imagine that's part of this must be really difficult to try to get, I don't know, remove anything that's not pertinent, that's
Yeah.
incomplete, that's
Yep.
wrong, or
Yep.
and then make sure you still have a data set that is,
Yep.
I don't even know what the word is, whether it's accurate, acceptable, or what that means, or what it is.
And then of course the interesting and more difficult part, and the bit my pupils struggle with, and is because they have to do in one of the marketing modules that I teach, they get given a whole bunch of research, and they have to put together a marketing campaign and report.
Yeah.
It's the idea of having a rationale or being able to justify your point of view based on the data or based on whatever.
Yeah, I mean,
I
your
think that's the
pupils
hardest
study with
part.
it. The master students I teach struggle with it. The
Yeah.
juniors in agencies struggle with it.
Yeah. And then it
It's an
comes
acquired
with
thing. But
doing a lot.
yeah, sorry.
I don't
Go
know how
ahead.
you teach it.
I don't know.
So
I think I so far I think I'm failing. I think
because
that either there's a few students that have it and or are interested, and the others just don't. So I don't know how
because
to teach it.
but how did you get good at it? Was it just doing it a lot?
I don't know.
Do you know what I think it is? I genuinely think it. So because I'm pretty good at it,
I
I
don't
can
think it's
understand that.
doing it a lot. Yes, but I think there's something from earlier and or
Yes.
later. Like I'm working on new projects right now, and also in addition to doing it a lot, I think there's an approach. There's you being able to hone and use my strengths, and things like personal development and even just a few years ago, that coaching course I did on listening and meditating, which has brought me a lot more ability to assimilate and manage my ideas, which are two of my core strengths when it comes to strategic thinking, at least at least that's from the point of view of the Strengths Finders Gallup, which works for me, and then it works for this. It works as a lens to look at this kind of question, I think.
I
And
think it's
then
something
it's the
slightly different.
curiosity. What do you
Yeah.
think it is?
Reading books,
Oh yes,
narratives,
absolutely,
stories,
absolutely.
understanding how the threads of an idea can be pulled together into a whole. It's
Yeah,
basically the same thing we both keep banging on about. Read books. Read books.
but and even my, I don't know. I don't think anybody's going to watch this. I can say it, but I'm surprised by. I'm not surprised because then again, when I was 22, I don't think I did that a lot either. But so they either lack full stop or are shy or intimidated, uh, a mix of all those things perhaps. But I'm still struck, I suppose, or quizzical, I don't know, about when anybody, like any of the students say anything, most of the time it's not about the question I'm trying to engage with, which I think is made up in an open fashion to try to get them to think about things within a certain topic. And on Monday, that was heuristics and biases. And then what comes around is like my opinion about something. And I'm like, well, that's not what I asked. And the opinion has nothing to do with the question. Engaging into what does it mean to be biased and what are those heuristics? Where do they show up?
Mm.
Is I think brands should do this. You're like, well, yeah, but you just parroting something you've heard. You're not thinking. You're not considering any of it. So I'm like, and that's where there seems to be a break in communication that I don't know how to get them to see something else or to think something else, which is that's also where I was going and what I meant by the curiosity side of things. Now,
Mm.
I'm of course making generalizations. It's true where it's true, but it seems to be a majority of either, and it's possible they don't care, they don't want to. Also, there's some of that too, and some of the other is like they don't seem to be seeing that there is something else to be thought about. That they're much of the time they come up with like there's this way to think about it that I've heard and I'm repeating, and I'm like, well, okay, well, that's great that you think that's the right thing to do, but you're basically repeating what you've heard before, and you're not answering my question, and you're not trying to engage with a question. It seems like, from my perspective. And then I'm like, ask a few more, and I have a lot of blank faces, and I'm like, all right, well, doesn't seem to make sense to people, so let's just
I
move on to
wonder
something
if
else.
that's a
And maybe it's me. I don't know.
where it gets too hard, like if it's too hard,
Maybe it is. Maybe it is really
or
hard. But I don't know where to start. I mean, there's got to be some kind of start. I'm like some kind of light, some kind of kernel of like, oh, is this what it means? I don't know. How
yeah,
about it means this? And I'm open to any kind of thinking if I see like some effort, mental effort going on.
I forget you're not even teaching school kids.
No, and then when I think about it, I'm like, well, did I want to do anything? Did I understand any of this stuff when I was in university? No, probably not.
Oh, I'm thinking back to I don't know,
But I did
like
read a lot, so I don't
yeah,
know.
because I definitely would try to answer the question when I was in my 20s. I would
I and,
definitely
and maybe I make it too difficult. There's
try
a lot of
and like
questions I
it.
asked, and students are looking at me like I don't understand what you for me.
What would be an example of a
Well,
question?
I mean, I can open. Let me see. I can try to open something from Monday. That was the.
Because
I have a lot of tabs open because I'm working on a project right now, a big
because
project.
I ask questions and then I sometimes have to rephrase them because I can tell by the audience they're just not like
Yeah, yeah, that happens. Okay. I know I didn't even have slides for Monday, actually. Sorry. Oh no, I did for Monday. I did. Monday was the 18th. Yes, it was that. I did prepare a few questions, but I'm happy with my preparation from Monday.
So you're getting more used to that process of preparing and like, yeah.
I'm both getting a little bit more used to, and also occasionally a little bit more easy on myself. Going, okay, I know enough. I've prepared it. I read it. I have
Mm.
a couple of questions. I've highlighted the text. And you know what? If they don't want to engage, I have other things to talk about. And worst case scenario, sometimes they beat me, and I'm like, all right, let's just watch a movie then if you want.
Yeah. Yeah. But the
Nobody wants
like
to say anything. Let's
the
just watch a
thing
movie.
about the thing
And
about
no, but the
teaching,
hour goes fast. The other thing is, honestly, I think to really engage the stuff that I'd like at the level I'd like, I need more time.
I don't. It's interesting because
Or I'm not doing
sometimes
it well enough. It's possible too.
you're probably doing everything fine. Teaching can sometimes feel like you have to be entertaining
Oh yeah, you do,
when
and I try that.
other times it's like, no, this is hard. You got to bring yourself to this. Stop like not trying and actually try.
Yeah, I was observed and told that was one of the things I needed to do was be a lot harsher on like putting them on the spot for reading or not reading things.
Wow,
Okay.
interesting.
And that I was speaking too fast. Which I know. That's
Because I'm pretty harsh, truthful, truthful slash I don't know,
I'm
truthful for
truthful
sure.
but ironic. But I take it as guys, you're graduate students in your
Yeah.
fifth or sixth year of study. You don't need to be here. You're grown-ups. I have other things to do than to try to force you to do things. It's not in my interest. And that's also, I think, part of my style.
Hmm.
Like, you know what? Just you don't want to do it. So, I mean, I'll tell you, and I'll tell you that I know. But aside from that, I mean, why am I going to try to shame you for these things? It doesn't seem to be like very productive to me.
Yeah, yeah, I'm very honest, and I think that everybody knows. Well, I think everybody has in the back of their mind what they want to do, but they
Mhm.
don't always talk about it or articulate it.
Well,
And I
here's the
found
question. Yeah, sorry.
go on, and I find the more they can articulate what they want to do and where they want to go with it,
Mhm.
the more self-interest they have in wanting to master it. And then just to
Yeah.
finish the other
Yes,
this bit
absolutely. You're
before
right.
we
I
go
agree.
to your question,
No, it's okay.
the I've said to them, and I keep telling my pupils this, like the learning happens when it's difficult, people.
Yeah,
When you're
that's a good one.
grappling with it,
I should
when you're
mention
the
that, and I will.
struggle, the
Yeah.
struggle is where it all comes together. Because if you weren't struggling, it's just nothing happens in your brain,
Yes.
literally.
Yeah. I think that's a good, very, very good point. So the reading was the text from Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky about heuristics and biases,
Hmm.
exploring the three main heuristics: the representativeness heuristic, which is we approach things by how much they resemble anything that we know.
Yeah.
Availability, the first thing that comes to mind must be the right answer, in short, which leads to biases, and then anchoring and judging. So, and the question here, and so a couple of months ago, I had them fill index cards, which I did again this time, to answer things. I haven't read them yet, but that allows me to check in their participation
Yeah.
and to reuse some of the material from time to time. So I actually used one of the questions that they had asked about a previous text, which was about market research. So I used one of the students' question to ask them back at them to lead the discussion.
Oh, nice.
And so
Nice. That's great.
the thing was, considering the readings, heuristics, and biases, how would you establish, if you're creating a new brand, how would you establish it? Should one focus mainly on influencers and celebrities? And so and I'm sorry to out this particular student, I don't think they're watching, but I apologize if they are, and I'm not naming you, but and so again, kudos for them for saying something altogether, because sometimes it's just not easy. But the answer back was, yes, I believe brands should use influencers. And I was like, yes, that's great, but that's not what I'm asking.
Ask your question again, because I was going to have a go answering it.
So the question is, thinking from the article of the exploration of what are these three heuristics and biases that the heuristics lead to certain biases, knowing about those biases, if you're building a new brand, should you focus mainly on building it thanks to influencers and or celebrities? So it's not. I mean, I'm like, yeah, great. I'm happy to know that you think you should focus on celebrities and influencers, but what does that have to do with heuristics? Why?
So my immediate thought, as I was as an answer to that question, would be, could there be a way of using any of the cognitive biases or heuristics to make something funny or interesting or eye-catching using a celebrity? I don't necessarily, but I think it would be more for me, how could it be used in a funny way to catch people's attention, like the dancing gorilla thing, in some
Yes,
way.
which I showed them on the previous class, the dancing
And
gorilla.
then
Not the dancing gorilla, it's the basketball of the gorilla.
yeah, it's the dancing gorilla
He says
who
hi,
just
but yes.
no,
I don't know, maybe I'm
he
not thinking of the same
moonwalks.
video.
Yeah, we are, but he moonwalks across the middle. It's just a different version of the same thing.
Oh,
He
probably.
moonwalks across the middle of the
Oh yeah,
thing,
I'm
and then
not the original video is just walking.
okay. Um,
It's okay.
and then the
Same thing.
influencers and celebrities thing just is kind of an irrelevance to me. I think it's more fun to focus on. It would be more useful for a new brand to catch people's attention, like Liquid Death, by doing something
Well,
ridiculous.
okay, so
That was
perhaps,
my response. I don't know, but
but then, so I don't know if you know everything about the heuristics that we're talking about.
I can't remember it.
Yeah, but
But
we
that's
still managed to have a decent discussion. but while part of the idea is, and there's nothing wrong about this, but if I would answer back to you,
Mm.
then that's fine. But then do you want to establish your brand as funny? It seems
Yeah.
like you do, but that depends what kind of product service category you are operating in.
So then,
And
okay.
how would you work with influencers? And actually, funny enough, the next thing I did was they respond a lot better to illustrations and examples, but unfortunately, it keeps the level of conversation kind of like tied to the example, which
Yep.
it doesn't really elevate it. And a lot of them seem to have a hard time elevating it. By elevating, I mean thinking conceptually.
I know what you
Um,
mean.
yeah, I'm saying for anybody who might listen, not for
Yeah,
you,
no, because my people struggle with the same thing. However, I do have a suggestion
which
with
is
your question.
difficult, to be fair.
Oh, it is. I have a suggestion with your question.
Mhm.
It might be better to have something they can get hold of as a starting point in the question, rather than saying you're a new brand. Maybe like a real brand as a starting point, and then take it further. A bit like so in some exam questions,
I mean, I
rather than
agree that's part of the reason why. Sorry, I'll let you finish.
yeah, part in some exam questions, they won't say analyze why XYZ brand is not doing well or why XYZ business is not doing well. They'll say analyze two reasons why XYZ brand in the case study is not doing very well. It just a bit like, I suppose, a bit like the anchoring thing. It just gives a starting
Yes,
point.
it gives an anchoring. So maybe I should do more of that. And which usually, so I hesitate. And in this case, I gave them the example afterwards,
Mhm.
which was okay-ish. It
But then you make the
illustrated.
point earlier that if you give the example, everything becomes about the example and they don't go anywhere with it.
That's the point.
Yeah.
And if I make it about a brand, then they start arguing whether they like it or not, which is, I'm like,
Ye-
well, if it's
oh,
okay, but I don't
really?
care.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm exaggerating slightly, but it becomes about one thing like that rather than about the heuristics, even though they are applying their own biases and heuristics in the way that they answer the question rather than thinking about it. So I've tried a couple of different ways. I haven't found something that seems to be
well, it's
satisfying, but I
maybe
don't
another
know.
thing is like part of the reason I'm finding it really useful and interesting to do what I'm doing as part of the master's module is because the situation is pretty clear.
Mm.
Okay. I'm working for a market research company and they've got this car client and they're looking at the second-hand car market and they want to come up with a model for predicting prices of second-hand cars. Pick one model and one make and go from there. So
Yeah, but
it's
that's an
not
actual assignment. It's not a discussion. And
no,
you're
but
really like, I don't know how relevant it is to think of yourself of where you're at compared to these.
yeah, well, yeah,
I
I
mean, it
know.
is sort of, but
I'm thinking as a teacher, but the point is that having what's worked for me in school as well is
Mhm.
having one case study that we kind of that becomes a thread through all the things that we're studying.
Yeah, and I'll probably
That's
be
work
able to
too.
do better at that if I do this course again, which I'm not sure I will. So we'll see.
Yeah, but
But
this
that
is
said, I just want
interesting.
to. Can we close this off? And I don't want to talk about teaching the whole time. I want to
No,
talk
yeah,
about other
sure.
things.
The um
It's interesting. Don't get me wrong, but
well, the other thing, actually, the
Mhm.
other thing I did want to mention was reading.
Yes, me
And
too.
I finished oh, and I don't know if I'm embarrassed or not to say this, but I
I've been
finished a
reading
book.
graphic novels, so
Oh, I haven't. I finished reading a book about how to use data in schools, and I read it really fast. And I don't know why. I just seem to lap it up. And I think I'm at 21 books in 2023.
well done. I'm at only 20,
But I'm
and
including
but
graphic novels.
oh no, well then I have 48.
So, I mean, Watchmen, is it a graphic novel or is it a piece of literature or is it like a book or,
I mean, I count it as a book, and I categorize my graphic novels in a few separate
how many graphic novels have
categories.
you read?
This year,
Yeah.
oh, what happens? Sorry.
Was that me?
Uh, no, that was me.
Or was that your
So
Kindle just there?
I'm reading Lock and Key, which is 6 volumes, a little bit like Preacher. I read this one that is like quite a large tome, super interesting. I'll talk about it in a second. So those take a little bit, but they're quickly. So I let me double check my list.
Yeah, I'm just seeing how many have I actually read. So I might actually, including graphic novels, I might get to. I said I was going to do 20 in 2023. Oh, I've done 22 books.
I said I was going to do 24 books, novels, and nonfiction, and 31 graphic novels, manga, BD. So mangas, I read a few that are super short that don't have a lot of text, and a few others that are more like Watchmen that have a lot of text
And how
and are
many? How
larger.
many of
So
those have
far,
you
I'm at
read? Out of
28. So I'm
31.
at 20 books and 28 graphic novels, manga, BD. So 48 total.
Wow.
But I'm missing 4 books for the end of the year, and it's going to be. I'm going to sort of cheat a little bit, and probably if I want to make my number, I'm going to have to
Mm.
get on with reading a lot, and perhaps choose. So this is one thing I did
You get
last week.
strategic with these
Well,
your
yeah, I'm getting
choices.
strategic with it. So there's things that I definitely want to read. I'm hesitating. Honestly, I'm hesitating between picking back up Debt and finishing it, which would be a big thing, but I'm then probably not finish all of it. The 4 books.
Yeah.
The other thing that I did is I looked at my list of want to read in Goodreads, and
Okay.
I saw that I could class them by number of pages, so that I could look at what had the
Ah.
least amount of pages and check if I wanted to, if there's anything that I genuinely want to read and that doesn't have a lot of pages.
I didn't. I started to look at Goodreads, and I'm like, this is another thing that's just too much. I'm not going to do it. So
I've been integrating it little by little, and I mean I feed them my data, I guess, but I use it
well,
as it's my library.
I read. So I've read 22 books this year. 6 of which are Dresden Files.
Yeah, that's what I did. That's how I got to 24 last year and the year before.
um, yeah, which I find quite funny. And then
But I
there's
think
I
24, so it's funny because the last couple of years I did 20, 21, 22, 23, 24,
Mhm.
or 24 last year. This year's 24, like is struggling a little bit to get to both the graphic novel and, but last year I finished my graphic novels just at Christmas because it was at my brother's and he has a bunch of them. Um, but I think 24 is a good number in terms of books.
well,
It's a good number for the
I only
year.
read 14 last year, which is and including. Oh my god, did I even read any graphic novels? I swear I did. No, no graphic novels.
So I'm reading
Thought
Lock and
no
Key. Have you
one
heard of
one
it?
graphic novel.
Oh, wow. That's not a lot.
Only one. Whereas the previous year I got to 21 and I read one, two, three, four graphic novels. Yeah, so this is oh wow, I've got like going back to 2016. 2016 7, 2017 8, 2018 7, 2019 18,
I'm reading a lot
20,
more than in the previous years. I'm not going to go look through them right now because I have just too many things open.
2020 20, 2021 21, 2022
I didn't
14.
realize that you counted graphic novels, but I do count role-playing games books as part of my books
Well,
because
I
there's
only
a lot of
started
text in
counting
there.
graphic novels because of you to get my count up in the last 2 years.
But it's funny because I was reading somebody like getting stressed out about that count. Well, I'm kind of taking it as a game because I always have a lot of things I want to read anyway, so it's not like I'm going to read things I don't want to,
And I
and or things that have been on my shelf for a long time, such as this year. One of my books I counted it's the Constitution of the United States. It's a tiny little book, but I've had it on my shelf for years after a common friend got it for me, and it's a
hold on a
little
second.
printed booklet.
You read the Constitution of the US.
Yeah.
What did you get from reading that? Like, what was it? What was that like? Was it just, it's a series of
Well, in the first place, achievements from like reading it, even though it was sitting
well,
on
yeah,
a
yeah,
shelf for
yeah.
10 years.
But
An
but like
appreciation for the way the legal system in the US, like what it's founded on, which is quite
wow.
interesting.
Okay.
I don't remember much off the top of my head, but I will be able to refer back to it when I go and look at other things for sure. Like this is
Well,
arguably my input, like assimilating lots of information and reusing it for other ideas later.
exactly. That's exactly what will happen. You'll at some random point remember something at some random point in the Constitution that will be useful for some
Yeah,
random thing.
yeah. And the amendments to the Constitution were interesting as well. So
Okay.
all the amendments. So there's only like it's all the structure of it as in, we have these First Amendment, all the like first 10 that are and the or 11th that is the Bill of Rights. I'm mixing it up. I'm not saying this right, but anyway, it's interesting how the American consider a lot of their constitution and rules like set in stone, but they have been adding things to it occasionally.
How many amendments are there?
There's a bunch. There's like 21, 22, 25. No, there's more than 25.
Which is still impressive.
They start with the first 10, and then there's a few others. But and this is like this is tropes and general beliefs and language. When they start arguing about how like it's their, set in stone, it's a big thing, but it has moved and evolved, and it can do still. But part of I think this is where I'm completely talking out of my, I think there's something interesting in what I'm saying, but I'm ready for anybody to disagree, because I think I've not researched this enough. This is me in action, like using random threads of what I remember to make up ideas, arguments, and things that may well be sort of believable and persuasive in an advertising sort of way, but will not stand will not stand against academic scrutiny, which is fine. That's like my thing. But on the other hand, from an 80-20 perspective, I'm like, I've just put together a very persuasive argument in 3 seconds that I didn't have to research, and I can't people believe in it.
Well, I think it's impressive for a document that was written when it was, that it still is weighty. It still forms something. It still manages to articulate something. And it's impressive that there haven't been that many amendments when you think about it, really.
Yeah.
And that it can still be amended, that it's this thing that's both solid and stands for something and is a stake in the ground, but is also evolving.
Yeah.
I think that's inspiring.
The interesting part is also, there's a bunch of interesting parts, is that, which it's arguably is part of the foundation of American democracy.
Yeah.
Some of the reason why there's not a lot more amendments is the two-party system butting heads.
Yeah.
For there not to be, because they're disagreeing about it. And so a lot of new points stay moot or disagreement and at a stalemate. So on one hand, the discussion and the, democratic discussion of what should go into becoming rule of law is really interesting. And then some people want to break that because it's like, doesn't move. You just keep arguing about things and you don't evolve. And then you have things like, so not the opposite, a different system, the French system, is very different insofar as a lot of the rule of law is based in the civil code of Napoleon from the 19th century. And then after the post-World War, the current republic is super imbalanced towards the executive. So the office of the president has a lot of power over legislative power. So they can impose their view, which they do very much so.
The executive is becoming more like an emperor in charge of an empire, telling everyone what to do.
Yeah.
Like Napoleon.
Yep.
And I did read those reviews of Napoleon and those articles about Napoleon that made me laugh. The Ridley Scott thing made me laugh so much.
Oh, the thing where he said, like, who
his interview.
I love that. So yes. Great. That was fantastic. I'd quite like to see it, actually. I'm curious.
Well, of course you're curious. Yes, but I'd like to see it too. I
mean, I also wanted to go see the Marvels, but I didn't see it. I just didn't have time. That was just a different matter.
I
listened to a podcast about it was a YouTube video. There's a YouTuber I really like called like Stories of Old, who theorizes cinema, and I hadn't watched any of his videos in a while. And he talks about the Marvelization of cinema. And it's a really good video. And he talks about how we started getting tired of it, and how there's a lot of different things in movies these days, franchises, series, that don't seem to have the magic and transportation than others did before. And so he, at some point in the video, it's like almost half an hour, he talks about the Lord of the Rings, and he's like, well, he likes, and he talks about a lot of highbrow cinema, but also very popular culture across the board. And and he studies and records videos talking about aesthetics, talking about origins, talking about narrative structure, a lot of different stuff. It's really cool.
Like my
I'm sure I've shared his videos with you before. And he, in this video, he attempts to create some kind of theory of what the Marvelization of cinema is.
Mm.
And he goes in a structure and in an idea of like anthropic versus non-anthropic heroization in cinema, which is quite cool. It doesn't really, he's like, I'm not sure it really holds up at the end, but it's super interesting all the way through. And he also posits at some point in the video, and he's wondering if his appreciation of the Steve Jackson's Lord of the Rings, being a Lord of the Rings fan of the books, is maybe because he was young or something. Because he watches the new show on Amazon, and it's like even though the visuals are gorgeous, he's like, there's no soul, no excitement, no interest in what's going
That's
on,
interesting.
and it looks like it was written by committee. And then he goes back and puts the DVD on, and he's like, no, the movies are still amazing. So is it down to? And then he at first he theorizes it might be down to 3D. But he also then says, actually, I think it's, which I thought was an interesting thought, it's down to the fact that the projects that really work and have some emotional feel properly are projects that are the passion of the people that put them together,
Yes.
of
Yes.
Steve Jackson directors,
Yes.
whereas the projects that are just the production studio and the money guys
To make
said,
money.
well, this is going to make money,
Yeah.
and then I'm going to hire somebody who's
Yeah.
probably going to be good to make it.
Yeah.
Even though that person might be passionate about the project, still the project is it's not fit within a passion and a love for it. It's fit within, this is going to make money, so let's just do it.
Yeah. Yeah. What's interesting, well, it's watching Star Wars again last night. I was still caught up in it.
Yeah, and he talks about Star Wars as a good example
I was like,
versus the new Star Wars, where he's like, well, I mean, they don't seem to have anything, or they're stuck and they're going in a loop and going.
I haven't watched them, but I watched the trailer for the Continental from the John Wick universe, and I was like, I really want to watch this. I really, really want to watch it. And we watched about 10 minutes of Andor. I was like, what? I want to know what's going on here. And that was surprisingly dark as well. And it was interesting watching Andor like for 10 minutes.
Was that
straight
worth
after
it, Andor?
Well, I only watched 10 minutes.
Because I was a faithful, just to finish on the Marvel point, I was a faithful follower of all the Marvel stuff, but started getting bored of it.
I did too.
And he says that actually that they did a really incredibly good job of having a really wide arc. If you consider a wide arc, starting with Iron Man, finishing with Avengers Endgame.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm not talking about the individual quality of each movie. We can totally debate that. There's a lot that are not very good. Yeah. But if you consider the whole thing,
yes,
it's actually quite magistral.
Yes,
but after that, they're completely lost. And they're splitting to TV, multiplying the number of things you need to follow, and they don't know where they're going. Yeah, clearly they don't know where they're going with this one, but it seems like they knew in the first long arc. Whereas
it did feel, I agree.
Right now, it feels like they're completely lost. So
the thing is, we bought a new TV, and it's a huge TV.
Oh, nice.
And we were ready to get a new TV, and so we watched Star Wars on it. And I'm watching it. I'm like, there were moments where I was like, and I was totally caught up in it. Yes. I did have the thought partway through, this is like Dune. This is really so. I want to of course it is, but I want to.
Yeah, of course it is. That's where it comes, like, part of where it comes from.
And I have watched. I think I told you I watched the '80s weirdo thing of David Lynch, Dune, which I thought was okay. Didn't blow me away. Didn't hate it.
Yeah,
I thought the representation of the Baron was really good.
Yeah,
but
I haven't seen it in a long time, but yes.
Yeah, and I think it's that, to round everything off, I think it's stories, narratives, threads, fitting it all, having a direction, having an idea of where you're going, and where you want to end up, and being willing to change, but you have this direction that helps with writing essays, analyzing data, understanding your whole universe and life, and that's what I reckon. And coffee.
I would like to tell you briefly about these two graphic novels that I read, though, that are cool.
Oh, the Dissident what?
The Dissident Club.
That just sounds cool.
And it looks disturbing. And so Dissident Club is a bar, and I met the guy briefly, but I didn't talk to him. That opened in Paris, opened by a Pakistani journalist refugee.
Wow.
And this is his story.
Wow.
And it's really cool. It's very cool.
Have you read Persepolis?
No, what's that?
Similar, well, not similar. It's turned into a film about a girl from Iran who comes to another country. I can't remember where. Maybe
And
England.
and
Really
so
good.
he's about he's like probably a couple years younger than me, or
Oh wow!
maybe 4 or 5. And so he grew,
And
but so his parents are from Pakistan, and when he's a small child or a baby, they move to Saudi Arabia for work, and then his
uh-huh.
father and family get like become radicalized Muslims, and he grows up little by little. Well, actually, quite quickly. That his father's like, okay, no more Disney movies, no more toys, it's haram, et cetera, et cetera. So it's fascinating to hear and to read of the perspective in another side of the world of who are the good guys
Wow.
and who are the bad guys when he's growing up,
And
according to his parents.
is who did he wrote it and then who illustrated it and did all that, or did he? What did he? Oh,
It's based on so there's occasional pages where you switch back to him now telling his story. So he did it with a French comic artist, which is quite
it,
common these days to have documentary and real stories in comic form in France.
I'm surprised you haven't heard of Persepolis. That's
I might
interesting.
have, I don't know. And then the other
Is
one
that
I'm
so? Is it in
reading,
French?
yeah, this is in French. I
Oh,
don't know that it's probably not translated. It came out earlier this year, and I got it
okay.
at the
I'd love
library.
to read that.
I want to read the whole thing, but it's really good, and it's both really good, quite unbelievable. I mean, not unbelievable. It's like a crazy story, but and it's both like he's had some crazy things happen in his life, and but a lot of it is also just normal, but from another perspective across the world.
People doing their thing. Yeah.
Just
And
people doing
what was
their
the
thing,
second one?
except they're people doing their thing in Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, etc. And him discovering, all right, Lock and Key, Eisner Award. So really, really good. I didn't really like the drawings at first of the first, but I'm halfway through the series. It's like a 6 volume series, like a
Okay.
well, in full, like now they've all come out. It's been adapted, and I found out about it. I first heard about it when it came out on Netflix. They adapted it on Netflix, but it got pretty bad reviews from people who appreciate the comic because it's a really, really good comic that has won a bunch of prizes. And I'm really getting into it. It's surprisingly good. It's really dark. It's pretty like heavy horror in the comic, whereas apparently they made it like childlike. So it is
Okay.
childlike
So
insofar
it's
as
horror.
it's horror and childlike innocence mixed, and
Okay.
fantasy. And it's a few kids and a family that live through like a horrible tragedy in the first part, that then move back to their family, like historical family home in the northeast of the states where you went. So like
Hmm.
and somewhere in Rhode Island, just or Maine or somewhere like that. Massachusetts, I think it's Massachusetts. And they have a big old house called the Key House, and their last name is Locke. And the house has a bunch of keys that each one of the keys has a special power if you put it in the right lock. But only children can see the magic. And the teens can just about or not. And they have like
Wow.
there's a bunch of stuff going on that is it's cool. It's very cool. But apparently, yeah, I've
I
heard that. So I heard that it was a very good series, but that Netflix butchered it. I didn't watch the Netflix though, but I kept
yeah.
in mind that I wanted to read it.
You're making me remember, and I'd forgotten that I haven't read Sandman, and I need to read it.
Oh yes, you really do. You really, really do. Yeah.
I think, but I want to. I might just fork out over Christmas and buy the entire thing in a nice set and read them.
It's yeah, it's worth, unless you want to check whether you like it or not, and whether you think you're going to read it
I
or not.
just look. You said it's good. I'll read it.
No, you should definitely read it. I don't know if you want to have it. It's different.
Oh, I'll have it. Yeah, why not?
Because I've also recently rediscovered the library, and for stuff like comic books, it's great. I mean, they have a big collection, and there's a lot of things I want to read, but I don't necessarily have either the shelf space, budget, or want to have it because once I've read it, I'm happy to. I don't need to
No,
read it
I
again
think
or have it.
I think I'd want it because multiple people have told me about it. Even
Well, it
some
is. Yeah, it's
pupils at
gorgeous,
school,
gorgeous,
like,
gorgeous, gorgeous.
well, even my principal at school, he raves about Neil Gaiman and says Sandman
Yeah, I
is
love him.
amazing.
Yeah, he's fantastic. Cool. All right, good. Thank
So
you very much.